In context of your relationship with a narcissist, whether it is your parent, whether it is your romantic partner, whether maybe it is your coworker or maybe your neighbor, do you find yourself constantly asking the same questions? Is there something wrong with me? Why am I always attracted to this kind of people? Why am I letting myself to be a doormat? Why cannot I be just assertive? Why always this kind of people are being attracted to me? Is there something wrong with me? Am I being punished for something? Why cannot I just be assertive? Hi, my name is Patricia. I'm a counseling psychologist registered with HCPC in the UK. And in today's video, I'm gonna be talking about certain characteristics or certain dynamics in your relationship with a narcissist that might be keeping you trapped in that very toxic relationship. Throughout our life, we learn how to relate to different people. And then because of that, we accumulate different patterns of relating to different people. So we have like a system of different patterns of relating. Even those interactions with narcissists are very painful, difficult, stressful. Because they're familiar, it's very difficult sometimes to let go of these ways of relating. And that's why people perhaps for many years, sometimes they try to repair the relationship. We humans, we really like things which are familiar. That just gives us some sort of a comfort. On the other hand, new things, they create a lot of anxiety because these things are unfamiliar. And that's why perhaps sometimes it's really hard to let go of something which is familiar, even though it might be unhealthy and toxic. So especially our early years experiences, whether it is in a comfort zone of our household with our parents, with our grandparents, whether it is in a playground with other children, we constantly learn and absorb how to interact with other people. What happens when we cry, for example? Are we being comforted or are we being told off? Is it allowed to laugh? When we play with other kids in a playground, are we being included? Are we being excluded? So throughout the years, we accumulate all these different patterns of relating to people, of being with people. We absorb all the letdowns, all the emotional compromises that we needed to do. And because of all these experiences, we learn then how to gauge our emotions, our thoughts, our behaviors in context of relating to other people. So for example, mistrust and subjugation, these are very common characteristics that people who are in relationship with narcissists will have. And it might be that these people in childhood, maybe they were mistreated, they were taken advantage of, maybe they had no one to protect them. And it could be in a relation to maybe their caregivers, it could be maybe to their peers at school. Maybe those are people that were told off very often and they needed just to subjugate in order to survive. So they needed to follow wherever it was asked for them in order to feel that they are fairly safe. Because maybe there was a dynamic of if you're not gonna follow what I'm asking you for, then there's gonna be a harsh punishment. So that means that the person will always subjugate in order to protect themselves. And now in this relationship with a narcissist, when the narcissist becomes very demanding, unconsciously those memories, they might be activated and the person will then react whatever they've learned in their childhood. So whenever they will feel that they are at threat, that means they will again subjugate and they will follow whatever the narcissist is demanding from them. Another set of very common characteristics that people who are in a relationship with narcissists are defectiveness and also having very high standards. It might be that in childhood the person was made to feel unlovable, inadequate, and also was made feel as if there was something really wrong with them. So in that kind of circumstances, the child will then make any effort to be accepted, to be loved, to be given the attention. So now in this relationship with a narcissist, when the narcissist is demanding, when the narcissists become very distant, you make any effort to please them. You take on the whole responsibility of pleasing them. But what's happening again is your old ways of behaving, your old memories here are being activated, and you're replaying whatever you've been taught as a child. Another set of characteristics that is very common for people who are in relationships with narcissists are abandonment, self-sacrifice, and emotional deprivation. So in context of these characteristics, the person perhaps grew up in an environment believing that there's no one on whom they could count on, that people around them could easily leave them, that there was not even one person who could really understand you, or there was not even one person who could really love you and be there for you. And this might happen for children who maybe grew up with the parents where there was maybe addiction, parents who are not emotionally available, and parents as well who are not maybe even physically available because of their work commitments. So obviously if they were not there physically, they were not able to nourish them, they were not able to there to listen to them, to be for them. In those situations where children, they grew up with parents being felt like they're burden to them, where they need to work really hard to gain an attention, where children, they were actually made responsible for pleasing the parents, for parents' happiness. That then in turn created perhaps this dynamic where the child needed to work really hard to gain any attention. So that means that the child would put a lot of effort in that relationship with parent, but they would get very little for themselves. Now in your adulthood, in a relationship with narcissist, you will find yourself perhaps most of the time walking on eggshells and trying to please them. And it might be that here and there you will start feeling frustrated, you will start feeling resentment because you're constantly doing something for them, but then you're not gaining anything in return for yourself, or maybe you're gaining very little. But unfortunately, this anger, frustration, or resentment will only trigger hurt, and then in turn you're gonna start feeling really guilty, and then you will go back again to working really hard, making sure that you can make the narcissist happy. So now if we're gonna take an example of someone who has the characteristics of feeling that they are defective, someone who has the fear of being abandoned, of a person who can sacrifice anything to get very little in return in relationships, and someone who can easily subjugate in a relationship because of certain fears, then we can predict that the person will easily take blame on themselves in that relationship with a narcissist. They will feel inadequate. They will also reenact this pattern of never demanding whatever they need. So their needs, they're not gonna be never important enough to put them forward, because there is that constant fear of maybe being abandoned, the fear of not pleasing the narcissist partner. So in this example, the negative coping mechanism, it will be avoiding and always going along with what the narcissist wants. So here in this instance, the person who's in that relationship with a narcissist, in order to make any change for themselves, they would have to come in touch with their own values and start believing that their own needs are also important. And they would actually have to come to realization that their needs, their values are also important, and it's actually alright to request certain things. It's actually alright to demand certain things in a relationship. So people who are in relationships with narcissists, they have obviously different choices. They can end the relationship, they can continue living the way they are doing it now, or they can adopt new, more healthy ways of resolving the issues with the narcissist. And perhaps the last option maybe is the best one if you really want to stay in that relationship, but it will require a commitment. So both partners, they will have to be really committed and they're really motivated to make the change. And even though the change might seem impossible, very daunting, it is actually possible, but it will require definitely hard work from both partners. So scientists from within mental health and neuroscience, they agree that perhaps one of the ways of how we can bring a positive change in a relationship is by applying a skill of active listening and by bringing this very genuine self-expression into the relationship. So thank you so much for watching my video, and if this is the first time you're visiting my channel, then make sure you subscribe and also hit the notification bell, so every time when I post a new video, a new short, you're gonna be notified, so you're not gonna miss out on any of this really interesting content in context of mental health and in general in how the human mind works. All right, thank you. Bye.